Beautiful people, it's your girl Minette, aka Miminel, on another episode of MIMINEL'S Diary, Realities and Perceptions. You're welcome to this exciting yet intriguing episode of the show. So today we're going to be talking about a very interesting yet disturbing topic, which is no other than secrecy before marriage. Why do you think people withhold important information about their lives or who they are to their spouses before marriage, and eventually open up to their spouses to tell them about these things after marriage? Remember, the slogan for the show is realities and perceptions. What I think, what you think, the reality of what is, and the way forward. However, we are going to try to look at this topic from the angle of the keeper of the secret or information. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Secrecy, in plain terms, can be defined as the act of intentionally or deliberately withholding vital information from a person, and usually because of feelings of fear or shame for what that information, when disclosed, can cause. So on this episode, I would really like for us to understand the reason why many people decide to withhold this vital information from their spouses, even at the risk of knowing that, okay, this information can cause harm or damage to my relationship. They would rather prefer to open up to their spouses after marriage. So I tried to do a bit of research and talk to a few people about what their opinions are, what perceptions do they have about disclosing who you truly are or everything about you to your spouse. And the very first set of people had the ideology that your past is your past, and your spouse, wherever you met with your spouse, you're just supposed to pick up from there and go ahead with your relationship. And you are not supposed to tell your spouse who you have been with in the past, what you have done in the past. It is not supposed to be his concern. It's not necessary to let him or her know who or what you have been doing before you met with him. So while looking at that perception, I found it a bit problematic, because to me, I think it's more like a time bomb waiting to explode. It's better you let your spouse know who you have been with or what you have been up to before you guys met, and it's up to him or her to accept you for who you are. Because I feel like in the case where you have a troublesome ex, he or she rather might just bring problems in your marital home, and letting your spouse know from others who this person is to you or what you have been up to will not be a good sign in the marriage. I believe in the long run the home is not going to be peaceful. It just creates room for unnecessary tension in the home. I didn't really find the perception comfortable, and that is where we came to the next set of people. And other people said, your past is your past, your present, you should just focus on the present. It's a bit conflicting, because to me, if you have a past, it is what has made you to be where you are or what you are. So there is no point hiding that past from your spouse. It may be a past, it may be an addiction, it may be a weakness, a flaw, whatever it is that you might feel so uncomfortable to discuss with your spouse. It is better you tell your spouse what you are, who you are. Let them accept you completely. After your spouse must have accepted your past, then you can move on. That way you can easily say, okay, your past is not as relevant as the future I want us to build together. That comes as a mutual understanding between you and your spouse, not that you intentionally withhold this information from your spouse. So in the long run, we find out that this particular aspect is a bit conflicting too, because in another case somebody might tell you that the maturity level of your spouse counts. That's very true, because there are some people who cannot process the activities or things you have done in the past. There are a lot of people who cannot bring themselves to accept who their partners have been before they met them. That's why some people will always say, I would prefer to keep it to myself, or maybe I'll tell my spouse after marriage. The maturity level of your spouse to count. That's very true. That is why I said this particular ideology is conflicting. Because at some point, if you see that your spouse is not mature enough to handle who you have been, in the long run, it just breeds mistrust in the home. He or she might now use this information against you. Every little thing he makes reference to your past. That is where the point of fear and shame comes in. You can never talk about secrecy without attributing the feelings of shame and fear. Unlike the case in a previous video where I talked about secrecy and privacy in marriage, unlike the case where the person may be afraid to disclose this secret because it's going to cause problems in their home, in this case, before marriage, a secret being kept would bring feelings of fear, just because a person might be afraid to lose his or her spouse, her partner. They may be like, okay, what if I tell this person who I have been or what I have been, and this person leaves me and doesn't commit to be in a marriage with me? After all my efforts, after all my time invested, what happens if this person leaves me? So most of the time, the feelings of shame and fear comes in, because they are now scared of what will be the outcome if this person finds out about my past. In other cases, they might be scared because it might be maybe a Waterloo for them, and your spouse just turns around to use all of these things against you in the home. It makes the home uncomfortable for you. Maybe you do a little mistake in the house and it's attributed to who you have been in the past. Change is the only constant thing, and most people might not be able to process all of this in due time. But of course, as they say, time heals all wounds. It is better to be transparent. It is better to be open with your spouse. Let them know, let them accept you for who you are, what you are, everything about you, before committing to be in a marriage with you. In as much as you try to hide all these things, that thing you're trying to avert, you might end up meeting it in the nearer future. So in the case where your spouse may not have the high intelligence quotient or maturity to deal with your past, it is still best for you to open up to them. Time will heal all wounds. It may be hard for them to accept it at that point in time. It may be difficult for them to compromise all what has been said or done. But in the long run, they are going to eventually come to that reality, and they are eventually going to accept you. So there is no point hiding. To me, there is no point hiding or keeping these vital details from your spouse of who you are or who you have been. Because if I should accept or be in a marriage, then I should be able to accept or compromise, make sacrifices, and face whatever is coming. That is why it is a marriage. It's a mutual understanding between two people, two different people. So we are not going to crucify the other person because he or she has her own flaws, which may not have been what you have been. To me, what matters is the understanding and going forward, how this person reacts to the change he or she has decided to accept. Change is the only constant thing in life. And people change every day. Situations may change people. People are out there doing things which they are not in support of, by the way, but due to situations, one thing or the other, they find themselves doing certain things which are not right. So if this person shows repentance and has given up the past to face a brighter future or a better future, I don't think there is any point for you holding his or her past against him or her. So in this case where your partner is using your secrets against you, I think a dialogue is still better. Or better still, talk to a counselor about it rather than using it against the person. It just makes your home uncomfortable for both parties. I believe there's always a way out to everything. Rather than keeping these secrets and giving your spouse, the person on the receiving end, giving him or her the impression that he or she was played into the marriage, it is better you open up. Because there is no amount of begging or talking or convincing that you would do that would make him or her or your spouse to feel like, okay, you didn't play me, or you didn't have all of this planned out from the start. Remember, transparency heals to trust. Where there is secrecy, where there is a lot of hidden things, you only breed misunderstanding, distrust in your home, and a lot of unnecessary fights which could have been stopped or avoided. That will be all on today's episode of MIMINEL'S Diary Realities and Perceptions, and I have been your host Minette, aka Miminel. Please let me know your views on the topic. Let me understand your own stakes as to why or what will cause you to keep certain vital informations hidden from your spouse before eventually going into marriage, and in some cases opening up only after the marriage. Please share the video, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. You have been wonderful. If you're just joining in, thank you so very much. You haven't missed a thing. You can always refer to our videos. Check our page on Facebook and on YouTube at MIMINEL'S Diary Realities and Perceptions for any updates, and please don't forget to subscribe. Please like and share, and keep the views coming. Until next time, bye bye.